All right, so I'll just say a few words. This is a kind of a special Thurnauer talk. We've been doing these for a while, and it's been with faculty and staff, but we have two special guests today. It's also special because I'm not the usual host. That's Michael Reingold, but he is out of town, and so I'm doing the hosting duties. But it's really special because we have with us Pedro Giraudo, a Grammy Award-winning artist, composer, bass player, band leader, and our own Morgan Pounder, also a composer. And what's really special is they're both having pieces of theirs premiered at our Gift of Music concert, benefit concert, a week from today on Sunday, May 1st at 4 o'clock. So that's put a plug in there to make sure you get your tickets because it's going to be a wonderful evening. Anyway, I thought I would start by asking both of you about your backgrounds and your background in music in particular. But Pedro, maybe I'll start with you. Could you tell us where you grew up? Did you grow up in a musical family? How did you get involved in music?
Well, yes, I was born in Argentina, and I did grow up in a musical family. My father was a conductor, and my mother was never a professional musician, but she did sing in a choir for a while. And most importantly, she actually sat next to us, myself and my siblings, during, daily music practice. So she actually had a keen ear and helped us out. And as it happens quite often with teenagers, I actually rebelled against music. And I got tired of it. I used to play piano. And then I quit music when I think I was around 12. And then at the age of 16, I started playing electric bass, rock, which was the kind of the most popular popular music in Argentina at the time for my generation. And after, I guess because I grew up in a musical family, my ear eventually wanted to hear something a bit more sophisticated. And that led me into jazz. So in 1996, I moved to New York City from Argentina. And that's where I began my studies and my life here in New York, which has been kind of my home since. And that's, in a nutshell, my musical.
Okay. Morgan, how about you? Yeah, I know you're born and bred in New Jersey, but came from your parents came from elsewhere. Maybe you could tell us about your family background and how did you get interested in music?
Oh, well, I was born here in Jersey, but my mom's from Jamaica, and my dad's from Guyana. We have like no musical people in my family, but I remember when the JCC was closely affiliated with Inglewood, the public school I went to. I signed up for their chorus in the second grade, and I think that's when I really started feeling my passion for music.
Okay. Yeah, it should be said that the whole reason we do this gift of music is for students like Morgan, who, if we didn't have this scholarship program that we raise money for, she might not have had the opportunity to develop her talent or even find that talent. So another plug-in for our gift of music. Like Morgan, you play the clarinet, right?
Correct.
Okay, you make it sound like not so certain that you play. Okay, well, you started in the chorus, and that got you interested in music. When did you? When did you decide that maybe you could write your own pieces?
I think I emote through music a lot, and I think I connect better through words that are sung or music that is played more than I can hear words. And I think ever since I was younger, I'd always like sing random songs to myself. And I think this one time I just found something that actually sounded like it could become a real piece.
Okay, so that's how you found. Pedro, how about you? I mean, you dropped out of music for a little while, then when did you get the urge to compose and not just play? early
My
on?
relationship to composition has been a bit strange. I mean, all my formal education, both my undergrad and masters, are in performance, actually in jazz performance. But out of the blue and without any kind of premeditation, when I was about to graduate school, Manhattan School of Music, I in a few months I actually composed all the music for my recital, and I don't think that was the very first time that I had written music, but like the second. I think I took a classical composition class for one semester for performance, which was kind of okay, and I think I wrote one piece there. And after that, once I started writing, I never stopped. I kind of very much enjoyed leading a band and writing for it and writing for specific musicians. So that started in the year 2000, and I have not stopped since. I have had a few different projects with different people, but always with an idea of having an ensemble with people that I know and I write for, and record music. So that has been kind of my relationship with composition.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, a lot of band leaders write specifically for their instrumentalists. Morgan, in your case, you've written this piece for chorus. What was you said a little bit about your inspiration. It just kind of came to you. What was it like working with, like hearing it for the first time, going into a rehearsal and actually hearing it? What was that experience like?
So it was an interesting experience, honestly, because I didn't know how balanced every part would be. And since we don't have as much young men as we did previously, my tenor and bass wasn't as prominent as I thought it was. But it was really nice to hear it regardless. And it was just a very fun experience.
Oh my God, that was so different. Still, I'm 44 years old now, and every time I bring a new piece, there's a part of me that is terrified that it's going to suck. And the first times were like, just nerve-wracking. So I love it, Morgan, that you have that relationship with with the process.
Uh-huh. Do you make this question for either of you? Morgan, did you make once you heard it the first time, and you said the balance wasn't right? Did you make some changes to was that the process?
I didn't really make as many changes because before I wrote this piece, I think I wrote it all within May of last year, and I was working with Miss Emma and Miss Jiang to tweak it to work for our current chorus. So I think a lot of the time tenor and bass were already doubling sopranos and altos, so there wasn't as much of a need for me to change any of their parts.
I see. And Pedro, how about yourself? What kind of adjustments do you make when you hear it the first time? Do you tweak it? Do you?
Yes, and not only the first time. For me, I love to see. There is the initial kind of spark that brings a piece to life. But once I get it on stage, I continuously tweak it. There are things. Although everything is written out in my music, there is a certain room for interpretation. And I'm a bass player, so for example, pretty much all the other parts, I don't know their instruments as well as the musicians that they play with me do. And sometimes they have excellent suggestions that I always take. And there are times that I hear things differently and I want to change them. So of course, that after time it cools down, but there is a long process of pieces that we have been playing maybe for 1 year or 2 years that I, every other gig, I decide to tweak one little thing or toss at someone or add something, or I don't know, the latest edit that I can think of is that we decided to incorporate a improvised piano solo in the middle of the piece. So it's, for me, the tweaking is kind of a constant.
Okay. I don't know if this is true or not. Have your pieces? Have you heard your pieces performed by somebody else? I mean, have you been in the audience to listen, and not as a performer, but just as a composer?
Yes, and yet again another somewhat terrifying experience, and even more because when I when I bring the pieces, usually to my ensembles, or even if it's not my ensemble, but I'm there and I can work with the people, that gives me a lot of peace. That it's not going to be grossly misinterpreted. So now there has been a few times that I've just kind of showed up to a theater and wondered what what people thought my music was supposed to sound like. And that, it was I was never disappointed, but it's still there's a little thing that, a part of myself that gets a little nervous.
Okay. So Morgan, you got involved in music young, which is great. Maybe you could tell us about what it's meant to you to be getting a musical education at our school. How has that helped you develop?
I think it's a very great experience because Thurnauer is a very good school, and I learned from not only my teachers but other students who helped to push me. And I think seeing this whole different blend of people coming together to make music is really wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Pedro, I gather you didn't have this. You didn't go. Did you go to music school, or you were just learning from your parents and your father? And
I did, well, not so much school at the time in Argentina. There was not a lot of kind of a educational structure for jazz. So I did take regularly private lessons, but I didn't go to an institution or a school. So I was taught, but not in a kind of in a structure.
Not until much later.
Yeah, and later on, and actually, what Morgan said, kind of, I had a very similar situation where I learned a lot, both from my teachers, but also from my classmates. It's beautiful to be in an environment where you get inspired, from every single angle, and that's what happened to me, especially in my undergrad, and I had a very good experience.
Okay. So Morgan, you've got to jump on Pedro, because you've got a formal education a lot earlier. So
yep.
So that's a good thing. Let me ask you about you work with your musicians, and Morgan, you worked with the chorus and with Jiyoung and Miss Emma to kind of hone your piece somewhat. What about the initial inspiration? I know you said Morgan just kind of sprung to you, but was there something? I mean, in this case, you wrote both the words and the music. So what was the inception there?
I think usually, I don't know. I don't even remember. I feel like this piece originally started out as another song I sung in my head, but then I found better words to it later on. And then I was thinking, oh, this sounds good. I could possibly make this into a piece. So I remember I wrote out about like the basic chorus, which was about 10 measures. And then I emailed it to our composer teacher, Douglas Hertz, and he basically helped me out and guided me on where I should go from there. And then within a month, I had written the whole thing.
Okay, all right. Excellent. And Pedro, what about yourself? I mean, where do you get your inspiration from?
It varies. I've had different kinds of inspirations, throughout my life. Lately, it's actually very related to something very simple, which is just finding the time to compose. As we grow and we get more responsibilities, time becomes an important issue, and it's something that I struggle with, to find time to compose. So more often than not, at this time, it's just a matter of just being able to sit down and compose. And of course, there are days where, as they said, the juices are flowing, and, you get a lot of melodies in your head, and other days that, nothing. That still is the case. But at this point in my life, it's just mainly about being able to have the piece and the moment to compose. But, actually, the latest piece that I finished, I was on on tour, and while I was walking on the street, this little motif came into my mind, and eventually, I wrote it. I actually sang it on my phone, and then eventually finished the whole piece on it. But yeah, it's mainly just about finding time to sit down.
Okay. So in terms of finding time, but do you set set aside some time and say, whatever, Tuesday, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock I'm going to be composing, or is it just when it strikes you?
No, it's not when it strikes. It's because I wish I could plan that way, but then you wake up and then you have like 17 million emails that you have to reply, and then contracts to be signed, and then you get this performance on the bass, and I have to, keep my, playing chops together so that I'm decent. And then I also work a lot as an arranger. So, for example, today I got a call from Philip, actually, saying that he needed a kind of a big orchestral arrangement for the end of May. So that already, screws up my whole, the little time that I had left in May. It's gone now. So as much as I want to plan things, it's kind of impossible. So whenever I see that my calendar frees up a bit, I make it an effort to usually wake up early and just find a piece to compose.
Mm-hmm. Morgan, how about you? Do you have a time that you put aside to do it, or is it just
I don't think I ever try to put any, I don't think I've ever like deliberately said I'm gonna do this today. It's just sometimes when I start doing things, I get lost in them. And I remember, I think I worked on that piece 7 hours straight on a Saturday.
Wow.
So it just depends on how I'm feeling and if I'm like inspired. And like Pedro said, I will like record myself singing it, and then I'll try to do the chords, figure it out on the piano, and I'll record that just before I can put it in like manuscript paper.
Uh-huh. Okay. It's a totally different topic, I guess, but outside of, I understand both of your musical interests. Outside of music, what are your interests? What else, Morgan, you're young and active. What else do you do other than...
Are you trying to imply that I'm not young?
Well, comparatively. What other activities interest you?
Well, I've been a Girl Scout, I believe, since the 2nd grade. And I also have done dance for over 10 years. I do competition with my high school, actually.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Do you think being a dancer helps you be a musician?
I think it works both ways, because I think I have better musicality because of it when I dance. I understand the music better, and when I'm composing or when I'm feeling the music, I think I understand exactly where the phrasing is and how I should correctly play or how I should correctly sing it.
Mm-hmm. And Pedro, how about yourself? Though it doesn't sound like you have any time to do anything, but do you have other passions or interests that take up some of your time?
Yeah, that's actually pretty accurate, the lack of time. But on the other hand, just to keep, the few brain cells that I have left working properly, I try to run. I like to exercise, do bike rides. And actually last Monday, for the very first time ever, I took a boxing class with my daughter. Boxing? And oh yes, I could not move. And when I say I could not move, I'm literally... For like 3 days, there was no way. If I dropped something to the floor, I was like, okay, sorry, I had to, I could not pick it up. And I'm coming back this Monday for some more suffering. But yeah, if I had to say, it's just running, biking. Sometimes I take bike rides with my friends for the day. The other day we went to Governor Island, or sometimes we just go for a night and we go to Bear Mountain, for example, and spend the night there and come back. So a little bit of exercise. And is there a word in English, bucolic, something like that?
Bucolic, yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. Like enjoying nature. So yeah. I guess I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it does, absolutely. But let me ask you. I'll ask you this one first, Pedro. What advice might you have to give to young musicians, or even children? Because I think the importance of music is not whether or not someone like Morgan's planning to go into music in some way or musical theater. But regardless, what is the importance that music you think should play in children's lives?
Well, this is going to sound like a cheap way out, but I'm not very. I don't like to give advice. It's kind of, I think it can put you in a position of being kind of superior in a situation, and I actually disagree with that. I actually have enjoyed many of the things that Morgan has said so far. But in terms of music as a language, there I strongly believe that regardless of, for example, with both my daughters as an example, my priority number one is that they decide to do with their lives whatever makes them happy. But I think, on the other hand, that understanding music it's a gift, and that it's as we enjoy and learn different languages, and we can enjoy French or German or whatever other, or Spanish, whatever language it is. And that's beautiful, and we can maybe enjoy a text in its original language. I believe that developing the sensitivity to music is something very, very valuable, and something that I try to instill in my family.
Okay. And Morgan, for yourself, Morgan, do you have siblings?
Oh yeah, I do have an older brother.
Okay.
There's a big age gap though, so he's 13 years older than me. So I was still really young when he went to college. I think I cried for a while.
Okay, so he's not a musician.
No.
Okay, all right. And what about your friends? Are you kind of on your own as a serious musician, or do you have friends who are also musical?
Besides the friends I've made through the music school, I don't think I have that many friends like who would seriously pursue music in any way. I have a few friends that I know from like my concert band at school, but I wouldn't say that they pursue music outside after high school. It's just a small thing to do as like an extracurricular.
I see. Okay. Well, let me ask you, you can open it up for each of you. Do you have, like Morgan, do you have a question you'd like to ask Pedro?
How would you go about writing, I'd say, music for instruments you might not know as well?
That's a good question.
That's actually a great question, and one that I guess when this meeting was, what Dan invited me to this meeting, that was something that I wanted to talk about, which is to really have an open communication with the people that you write for. Whether if you're very lucky to be able to write for a specific group of people, and even if you're not, I mean, if you have a friend who is whatever violin player, and you are writing a violin part, just reach out to them and ask. I think that's the best way to kind of get a sense. And then, of course, studying. I mean, I don't know if you have it, but if you have the Samuel Adler book on, I think it's called The Study of Orchestration, that's a superb book. It's incredible, and I cannot recommend it enough. I think it's can be a little pricey, but it's definitely worth the investment. Samuel Adler. And so there's that studying part, but then there's the very practical thing. And as you grow and as you get more experience, you're going to also, but that at least has been my path, to try kind of to find the balance of what's playable, interesting, and also what's practical. For example, with this Sunday we're rehearsing the piece with Philip Kohn, once, and we're going straight to the stage. So those are things that you have to keep in mind when you write the music. How much rehearsal are you going to have? So that in my case, when I'm writing, for example, for the people that I know that are going to be on tour and they get whatever to St. Louis and they have one rehearsal and they have the concert, so I make a big effort to write music that is simple and that is effective. So maybe it's not going to be challenging, and that whatever the musician is going to love the violin part because it's so interesting, but it's going to sound very good, and that's at the end of it the goal. And if on the other hand I have the virtuoso violin player that I have in my ensemble, and I know if the piece is not ready, I don't need to play it, but I can just rehearse another 3 times. Then I really, push my limits and try to write something very idiomatic for the instrument, yet challenging. So that's another way to grab the attention of your musicians. So it's if you write always something very easy, eventually you might lose the interest of the instrumentalist. And if you go the other way, sometimes your pieces are going to sound horrible. So you have to kind of find that middle way, depending on who you're writing for, what you're writing for, and all those kind of things, and make an equation to see what's practical and will make you as a composer look, and on the soloist, of course, in this case, for example. So those are the things that I think about when I write for instrumentalists. But coming back, I mean, if you see my phone, I always send pictures, to my musicians. Is this playable? Is there a better suggestion? You can always learn a lot from people who have spent all their lives learning that instrument. So yeah.
Right, and really great composers throughout history have written pieces for specific instrumentalists and have collaborated with them too.
Yeah.
Because they don't play every instrument, so you're in good hands there. Philippe, do you have a question you'd like to ask of Morgan?
Yeah, just curious about how you see your relationship with music from now on. I know this is a moment in your life that there are, I think, more than any other thing, a lot of kind of question marks. But I'm actually just curious because I see you so kind of passionate about it, and then I know you're a junior. So how do you see your relationship to music developing? Although it might go in a completely different direction very soon, but how do you see it going?
I see myself being tied to like music, and I think storytelling in general for a long time, because I think it really moves me more than just simple words will. And I think no matter what I do in the future, I think I will still be connected to music in my profession.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Well, we have a couple of audience members here. I thought I'd open it up and see if we have any questions from Dorothy Rothman or my dad, who's here, Stephen J. Do you have anything you'd like to ask of Pedro or Morgan?
Yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about the piece we're going to hear next Sunday. And I know you've been working very carefully with Philippe Quint. How has that affected the piece, working together with him? Have you, well, that's the question.
Well, to be totally transparent with you, actually, I worked the first drafts. I actually shared a lot with the violin player in my ensemble before sending it to Philip. So, and he gave me a lot of very good suggestions. There were things that I felt were fancy, for example, in terms of bowings. And then my violin player told me, the only thing you're doing here is kind of restricting how the person might want to express him or herself. So I worked on that end with the violin player in my band, Nicolas Danielson. And then I actually worked very closely with Diego Garcia, the conductor. And actually, with him, I had several conversations. First of all, I asked him to be very as precise as he could describing the orchestra, both in general terms and also, for example, in the wind department, what were the weaknesses and the strengths. So I don't give a super virtuosic a solo to somebody who has a different strength of maybe being something very soulful, but doesn't feel very comfortable on the instruments, things like that, or the balance between the strings. So with Diego, actually, I had a lot of correspondence, and with him, I worked closely together, to have a good score for this concert in particular. So that was my, I guess that's how the collaboration worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Philippe, you said earlier that before a new piece is performed, you're terrified. Morgan, how about you? Are you terrified for what's coming up on Sunday, or just excited?
I I think I'm excited, but I don't know if the word's terrified. I think more it's just nervous because now that it's we've been working on it for the past few weeks, I hear more and more people talking about it, and then I'm like, oh, are the expectations too high? I don't know. A lot of parents from like of younger choristers who have heard this song, they'll talk to other music teachers about me. So I just hope I don't disappoint.
You won't disappoint.
You will
That's
not.
for sure.
I can tell you will not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the peanut gallery?
I was just saying, I need to hear the music, and then I'm going to have a whole pile of questions.
Oh, there we go.
Mostly about how you grew up. Back to some of the questions that Dan was asking before, I would be interested in even more depth on that.
Well, maybe Pedro, how does your background how has that affected the music you write?
Oh, in this case in particular, very clearly, Argentina has mainly two kind of big lines of popular music. One is tango, which is very urban, and it's what you find mainly in Buenos Aires and in the port. And then the rest of the country has something what we call folklore, or folk music, which sounds completely different, has a very different instrumentation. Tango tends to be kind of very European. It features kind of string orchestras, bandoneon, piano, no percussion, and it imitates a lot of the kind of the bel canto, the Italian bel canto. On the other hand, in the kind of the western part of Argentina and through the north, we get a lot of the kind of the guitar Spanish tradition. You know,
Yes.
and there we get a lot of 6/8 rhythms, very syncopated. And this piece, the Sanfreno, actually is a piece based on the kind of the musical cell of a rhythm and dance form actually called chacarera, which is a very typical form in Argentine folk music. So, which is kind of the juxtaposition of very common in South America of, you know, putting the 6/8 and the 3/4 together. But in a kind of syncopated way. For example, the bass never plays the one. So unlike I don't know, Leonard Bernstein and I Want to Live in America. So so the Argentinian kind of influence there is going to be very evident.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Morgan, does any of your Caribbean background influenced your music?
I don't really think so, since a lot of the music I tend to at least hear, like I usually listen to like more either like electronic or jazz, which isn't as influenced by like Caribbean music. But I'd say I do consider percussive sounds occasionally when thinking about music. And that might be my influence from hearing a lot of steel pans growing up. But besides that, I don't think there's much.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Well, I was going to keep this to half an hour, which we're at now. Anyway, it's really been delightful to talk to both of you and enjoyed the conversation. I am looking forward very much to hearing your premieres on Sunday. It's really exciting. I don't think we've ever had two premieres at a concert for so that's something different, and it's going to be a wonderful event, so looking forward to it. So thank you both, and I'll see you on Sunday, and you'll get to meet each other on Sunday, not through
Exactly.
another thing. So okay,
Looking forward to meeting you in person.
Okay, terrific.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
Dan,
you.
that
That's
was a
wonderful. Thank you
wonderful,
so much.
what we both said. I think we were both talking and saying exactly the same thing at the same time. There's a piece for you right there. So it's been terrific. And
Well done.
yeah, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Morgan, and thank you, Pedro. It's been terrific.
Right,
Many
right.
thanks to you all. Pleasure.
Very
And I'll
good.
see you on Sunday then.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, good night.